we are about to tell you a completely true story from Japan. The incident once shocked the entire nation of cherry blossoms. No one could have predicted that a seemingly well-educated young man could be capable of such cruelty. Even after many years, people still cannot forget his face or the horrific acts he committed. The story is about Matsunaga Futoshi, born on April 28, 1961, in Yanagawa City, Fukuoka, Japan. From a young age, Matsunaga was well-liked and even admired by those around him. He was known for being exceptionally obedient and achieved remarkable academic success in school. Additionally, he was considered quite attractive by his classmates, particularly the girls. However, Matsunaga's relationship with a high school girl violated social norms at the time, and he was forced to transfer schools. In 1981, at the young age of 19, Matsunaga married, and soon after, he and his wife welcomed a son. Despite his seemingly romantic nature, Matsunaga proved unfaithful after marriage. Research suggests that by October 1982, Matsunaga had become involved with 10 different women, including Ogata Junko, who would later become his accomplice in a series of murders. In 1984, Matsunaga proposed to Ogata, but her mother, Shizumi, vehemently opposed the union. Shizumi suspected Matsunaga of manipulating and deceiving her daughter. Enraged by Shizumi's disapproval, Matsunaga resorted to a horrific act, raping her. His tactics then shifted. He manipulated Ogata into believing her family held animosity towards her. Preying on her vulnerability, he convinced her to leave home in 1985, promising a life together as husband and wife. In the same year, Matsunaga established a real estate company named World. Aided by Ogata, he defrauded numerous customers, embezzling 180 million yen. Upon discovering the scam, some disgruntled employees at the company attempted to intervene. However, they were met with violence, being beaten and tortured by Matsunaga with electric shocks. The incident was subsequently reported to the police. In 1992, fearing arrest, Matsunaga fled the city with Ogata in tow. The police responded by immediately issuing a nationwide warrant for their arrest. While on the run, Matsunaga lived in an apartment in Kitakyushu City, where he met a divorced woman with 3 children. Realizing that this was a lucrative prey, he planned to cheat this woman of love and money. In April 1993, Matsunaga seduced her, saying that Ogata was just his younger sister, and promised to marry her and take her to Tokyo to live. In 1994, with Ogata's help, Matsunaga embezzled 11.8 million yen, nearly $77,000. Afterward, they killed the woman and then threw her body into the sea. One of the other woman's 3 children died mysteriously in September 1993. The remaining 2 children lived with their father, ensuring their safety. At that time, the police suspected Matsunaga of murdering the woman and her child but lacked sufficient evidence to secure a conviction. Afterward, Matsunaga relocated to another apartment. There, he became acquainted with Kumio Toraya, a wanted criminal. Matsunaga feigned understanding and befriended Kumio, enticing him to confide in him by revealing his own criminal past. Recognizing Kumio's vulnerability, Matsunaga resorted to blackmail and imprisoned him and his daughter in his house. In addition to the torture, Matsunaga also forced Kumio to eat his own feces and forced his daughter to bite him. Kumio succumbed to the brutality of the torture on February 26, 1996. Meanwhile, Matsunaga attempted to manipulate his captive, Kumio's daughter, into claiming responsibility for her father's death. His cruelty didn't end there. He dismembered Kumio's body and disposed of it at sea. Wasting no time, Matsunaga set his sights on another victim, an acquaintance of Kumio. He tricked her into believing he was a decent and trustworthy individual, fabricating a backstory of graduating from Kyoto University. Just like before, Matsunaga repeated his predatory behavior, seducing this woman with promises of marriage. He then tricked her, embezzling 5.6 million yen. With Ogata's help, he imprisoned her and her daughter in the house. In March 1997, a woman attempted to escape by jumping from the second floor to the ground. She was then taken to a mental hospital. Her daughter, who had also been involved in the situation, was released as well. However, surprisingly, no one reported the incident to the police. After enduring many cruel missions, Ogata became increasingly terrified of Matsunaga's personality. In April 1997, she decided to flee from her abusive relationship. Ogata left for work that day and never returned home. When she went missing, Matsunaga made threatening calls to Ogata's family. In addition to the threats, he also tried to blackmail the mother about the incident in 1985. Not only that, Matsunaga also faked a suicide attempt to lure Ogata back. Tragically, she fell for the trap and continued to be subjected to his abuse, even being forced to help him with future crimes. Unable to bear the situation any longer, Ogata's family paid Matsunaga 63 million yen in the hope he would release her, but he had no intention of letting her go. The most disturbing aspect was his ability to manipulate and psychologically control the entire family to the point where they killed each other. Shockingly, they obeyed his commands. On December 21, 1997, Matsunaga ordered Ogata to electrocute her father, Takashojum, 61 years old, to death. As Shizumi's mother, 58 years old, descended into mental illness, Matsunaga's cruelty escalated. On January 20, 1998, he forced Riko, 33 years old, and her husband Kazuya, 38 years old, to strangle her to death. A few weeks later, the horror continued. Matsunaga forced Kazuya to strangle his wife Riko, even enlisting their 10-year daughter Aya to assist in the murder. Following this atrocity, Matsunaga imprisoned Kazuya in the bathroom, subjecting him to mental torture until he starved to death on April 13, 1998. The murderer showed no mercy, attacking both adults and children. On May 17, 1998, Matsunaga ordered Ogata and his niece Aya to kill Matsunaga's 5-year-old brother, Yuki. At the later trial, Kumio's daughter testified that Matsunaga and Ogata tortured the little girl Aya with electric shock. Ogata denied the allegation and said the testimony was inaccurate. Kumio's daughter admitted that Ogata killed little Aya on June 7, 1998. Later, after Ogata's family was murdered and no one was left alive in the world, Matsunaga and she unexpectedly cut up the family's bodies and disposed of them. Specifically, some were flushed down the toilet, the rest were thrown into the sea. Matsunaga's crimes continued in July 2000 when he approached another woman with the same guise. In August 2001, this woman gave her twin children to Matsunaga and Ogata to take care of. Then, he persuaded her to give him another 20 million yen, saying that he needed the money to raise the two children. The last surviving victim, Kumio's daughter, decided to escape on January 30, 2002, but was captured by Matsunaga on February 15, 2002 and tortured with electric shock. On June 3, 2002, Kumio's daughter mustered up the courage to escape again and finally reported the crimes to the police. The following day, Matsunaga and Ogata were arrested, and the twins and the woman were also taken into police custody. The couple was charged with murder on September 18, 2002. While Ogata admitted to her murder, Matsunaga stubbornly denied all accusations and blamed Ogata. In fact, the bodies of the victims were all destroyed and could not be found. Additionally, the Japanese police could not find any other evidence, so they relied mainly on the testimony of Kumio's daughter throughout the investigation. On trial, Matsunaga countered, "It's clear that the Ogata family hates each other. That's why they can kill each other so easily. It has nothing to do with me. I did not order anyone to be killed, and of course I do not have that ability." This also became the most controversial point in the case. Almost everyone could not understand why the entire Ogata family obeyed Matsunaga's words. Why couldn't they fight back? Why didn't they try to escape? Ogata said she couldn't describe her mental state at that time. The most likely explanation is that Matsunaga's torture with electric shock had a severe impact on Ogata's psyche. On September 28, 2005, the court sentenced Matsunaga and Ogata to death by hanging. On September 26, 2007, after filing an appeal, the Fukuoka High Court upheld Matsunaga's death sentence. However, Ogata's sentence was commuted to life in prison. The court considered the evidence that Ogata acted under Matsunaga's complete control and duress. According to the police, Ogata remained silent upon arrest. They believed she had been manipulated by Matsunaga to the point where she couldn't control her actions. It was not until the police and others tried to get the whole story out of her that she said, "I want to tell the whole truth. I am ready to accept the death penalty." Matsunaga initially insisted on refusing to plead guilty. However, on December 12, 2011, after the prosecution likely gathered sufficient evidence, he was sentenced to death. Upon hearing the news, the old neighbors expressed shock and horror. They also felt deep sympathy for Matsunaga. Inherently intelligent and agile, he could even be considered a genius in his youth. One can't help but wonder how his life might have turned out differently if he hadn't used his intelligence for such horrific crimes. In particular, up to now, there has been no explanation for Matsunaga's ingenious psychological manipulation. In psychology, psychological manipulation involves using deceptive or misleading information to control another person's thoughts, emotions, or behavior for personal gain. Manipulators often use words to erode the victim's confidence in their own memory, judgment, and values. This manipulation is slow and insidious, making it difficult to detect. Initially, the victim may even feel guilty for questioning their manipulator. The constant self-doubt erodes the victim's confidence, making them more susceptible to outside influence. Gradually, their sense of self-worth and grasp of reality deteriorate. This form of psychological abuse is highly effective because it cripples the victim's trust in their own emotions, abilities, and sanity. This erosion of self-worth and reality creates a power imbalance, allowing the abuser to easily control the victim. Furthermore, the victim's shattered self-trust makes it even harder to escape the abuser's influence. There are many tricks to psychologically manipulate victims, such as making the victims no longer have political opinions, repeatedly use words and body language to trivialize the victim's self-worth or feelings, reverse blame and accusations, make the victim think he or she is not alert or has mental problems. There are moments that are sweet and make the victim feel ambiguous, blatantly lying or pretending to forget, making up stories that are not true, using what the victims cherish against them, refusal to solve problems, distraction, seeks to isolate the victims, and after a long enough period of time, the victims have no one else but to rely on the manipulator. One manipulation tactic frequently mentioned by psychologists and foreign media is DARVO, which stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. This tactic involves denying wrongdoing, attacking the accuser, and portraying oneself as the victim. It's truly a scary case, isn't it? It's scary because somewhere in society there are still such sick people. What about you? Is this Matsunaga enough to satisfy you? Please leave your comments below to let me know. And don't forget, we'll see you again next term.